Hello, I'm Mike and this is Will. We are the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
I'll bring you issue 9 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol today. This issue came with 2 new base paints, Retributor Armour and Abaddon Black. So we'll be adding those to our models, and then in today's game we'll be learning about advancing and falling back, so more of the movement rules, and it'll also be the biggest battle we've had so far in this series. We're looking through the issue first. We'll be adding our 2 new colours to our models. So starting with the Space Marines, the Abaddon Black is going to be used for any of the soft sort of undersuit parts and the joints of the armour, as well as any weapon casings and any leather parts as well, like pouches and so on. And then the Retributor Armour is used for all of the trim, so that's the rims of the shoulder pads and the chest eagles, but also any other gold details such as any awards like the bolt shell on the Infernus Sergeant or the little reliquary the other Infernus Sergeant has. And then the Captain as well has quite a bit of gold trim, skulls and things you need to pick out, bolt casings for the Stormbolter and the hilt of his sword. So you can see them there, and that's pretty much most of their colour scheme for the regular Marines at the very least. And then we're also adding some Abaddon Black to the Tyranids, where we're painting all of the claws and talons and things. So got the claws for the Tyranid Prime and Von Ryan's Leapers, but also the little claws at the end of the Tyranid Prime's wings. Also their cloven feet as well, actually. You need to be a little bit careful because some of their flesh overlaps it. And again for all the termagants and the barb gaunts. Painting the carapace on the barb launcher as well, just to differentiate it from the rest of the Tyranid. And even the Rippers get their claws painted black as well. So you can see them up to this point. And again, they're starting to look fairly complete as well. Then background on chapters. So these are the standard organisation of the Space Marines. Each chapter is roughly 1,000 Marines, separated into roughly 10 companies, although there are some who are a little bit larger, like the Silver Templars. Each chapter kind of operates on its own, so it's all got its own logistics base, its own homeworld it will recruit from, although most of them have some sort of link with the Adeptus Mechanicus to provide their equipment, although each gets their own marking as well. You can see every Ultramarine will wear their chapter marking on their left shoulder, so you can see the Ultramarines one there. And then we have some of the other chapters. It is actually unknown how many chapters there are because the Imperial bureaucracy is very slow, so we have no idea exactly how many Marines exist. So you have the Blood Angels there, proud noble warriors who harbour some sort of dark secret that causes them to lose themselves to bloodlust. The Space Wolves, who come from the world of Fenris. The Dark Angels, who have their own secretive organisations and their own dark secrets as well. And also the Silver Templars, who are an Ultramarine successor, who, as we said before, form a sort of close bond with their weapons, making them particularly good at using their own personal armament. And then we have part 2 of the short story, Bonds of Honour, where a Silver Templars instructor is telling some aspirants about the tale of Sergeant Askerton, who is trying to retrieve his lost bolt rifle. And then the second page there, and there's a little data box about Judgment, Sergeant Askerton's chosen bolt rifle. But now I'll hand you over to Will, where he will teach us some new rules and we'll get into today's game.
So in this issue we'll be learning some more movement rules, this time for advancing and falling back, which are 2 particular kinds of moves you can make in the movement phase. So starting off with advancing, this is where you can get a unit to move further at the cost of not being able to do certain things later. So what you do is roll a d6 and then add that to the unit's move characteristic for this phase. So in this example, the Space Marine Captain, who has a 5-inch move normally, rolls a 4 for his advance roll and so can move up to 9. However, the downside is that units that advance cannot normally charge or shoot later in the turn, so there is a trade-off. And that means that there is often a tactical decision as to whether to advance or not, and when it can be advantageous. So for example here, these Von Ryan's Leapers wouldn't be able to make a charge if they moved normally, or at least it'd be very unlikely, but their normal move would not be quite enough to get them out of line of sight of the Space Marines, so choosing to advance, they manage to roll a 5, which is plenty to get them behind the cover so they won't be shot. And then over the page we learn about falling back, which is when a unit voluntarily retreats from a melee, either for tactical reasons or because it thinks it's going to lose the fight. This is the only kind of move that a unit that is within engagement range of an enemy is actually allowed to make, and to do so you move the unit up to its move characteristic, but it cannot end the move within engagement range of any enemy units. And once again, a unit that falls back cannot shoot or charge again, so it does pretty much prevent the unit from doing anything further, but can be a good tactical option. It's also worth pointing out in this picture here that they've measured this incorrectly. They've measured from the back of the captain's base and then measured to the front of his base. So in this instance, it actually looks like he'd be moving about 7 inches. So just to point out that that's completely wrong, do not measure like that. The back of his base should be 5 inches away from where he started. And then some more tactical tips when to fall back. Sometimes you want to get out of melee with a unit that's superior in melee to your own to prevent taking any further damage. Worth mentioning that units all will fight even in your own turn, so if you're stuck in melee in your own turn, the enemy unit will get to hit you again. Or, as in this example, the captain is falling back out of melee with the termagants to allow the Infernus Marines to shoot at them, because you cannot normally shoot at a unit that is within engagement range of a friendly one. So by falling back, it allows the Infernus Marines to hopefully get rid of the termagants. Then we're on to our game. So scenario 4 here, pitch battle. It should actually be scenario 5, that's just a misprint. But we'll be using all the rules we've learnt so far to fight a larger engagement with multiple units. So as you can see in the picture, the 5 Infernus Marines start in the top left segment of the board, and near them is the Space Marine Captain in Terminator armour, who starts within engagement range of the 10 termagants. It's not entirely clear from this picture, but from the example over the page it becomes obvious that that's what their intention is. The 3 Von Ryan Sleepers start down the bottom of the board, kind of lined up with the termagants, and then the 5 Barb Gaunts start in the opposite corner to the Infernus Marines. There's also 2 of our terrain cards placed where you see on the map. So we need the data sheets for all of those units, as well as the 2 terrain cards, and then the side that wipes out the other one before they are destroyed is the winner. It also says specifically here, something that we've mentioned before but hasn't been explicitly stated, that you can play through this mission solo if you play as the Space Marines. So if you don't have someone else to play with, then it gives you a method to follow in order to play this by yourself. So the Space Marines get to go first, and pulling together all the rules that we've learnt so far, they first up get to move, including the possibility of advancing and falling back. It suggests that you should fall back with the captain in the first turn to prevent him from having to kill all the termagants himself and let the Infernus Marines shoot at them, which can happen in the shooting phase. Any units that do not fall back or advance and are not in engagement range can shoot. That does include the captain, so we get to see his ranged weapon in this game, most likely. Then the Space Marines can charge. Again, the captain won't be able to in the first turn if he falls back, and it does suggest also trying to keep the Infernus Marines out of melee where at all possible, because they're much better at shooting. And then finally the fighting, if there is any left. And it says if you're playing solo, then when the Tyranids come to fight, pick them in the order of the Von Ryan Sleepers, the termagants, and then the Barb Gaunts finally, skipping any of those that are not in melee or are destroyed. So in this example turn, as you can see, the captain is falling back out of melee, which is how we know that he was there in the first place, allowing the Infernus Marines to shoot at the termagants and destroy them. And then there's a tip here that if you are able to destroy the termagants entirely in the first turn, then you should be in a good position to deal with the rest of the Tyranids, because the Von Ryan Sleepers are quite a long way away, and the captain can hopefully deal with them when they do get there. And then we move on to the Tyranid turn, where they get to do all of the same things. The Barb Gaunts and the Termagants both have shooting weapons, so you can shoot with those, and then the Von Ryan Sleepers in particular are probably going to want to charge. And it does say if you're playing solo and playing as the Space Marines, then in the movement phase, Tyranids only get to make normal moves, and they always move towards closest Space Marine unit as far as possible. The shooting units will always shoot at the closest eligible target, and the Von Ryan Sleepers and Termagants will charge the closest Space Marine unit, but the Barb Gaunts will never declare a charge, because that's not their role. And then finally fighting with them in the same order as before. Here's another example turn. The Termagants were destroyed as we saw, but the Von Ryan Sleepers moving up 10 inches, and the Barb Gaunts 5. The Barb Gaunts shoot at the Infernus Marines, and then the Von Ryan Sleepers declare a charge against the Infernus Marines and manage to kill 2 of them in melee, at the cost of 1 of their own. And finally we have our little victory outcomes, which you can pause and read if you want to. There's a little hint of what's to come in the next issue if you read the Space Marine one. But we'll get the board set up and all the models and then show you our playthrough of this game. So we've set up the board. We've actually rotated it through 180 degrees relative to the example, because I'm on this side of the board. It's much easier for me to reach the Space Marines this way, and Mike's on the other side with the Tyranids. And you can see the terrain in the places indicated and all the models, but we'll get straight into the first Space Marine turn. So I will start off for how the example suggests. We're going to fall back with the captain to allow the Infernus Marines to shoot at the Termagants. So putting our range ruler down, just move him his move characteristic backwards basically, which is up to 5 inches. So there we go. So he's now outside of engagement range of the Termagants, which means they are an eligible target to shoot at, but he can't do anything further this turn essentially. He can't shoot or charge. And then I'm going to move the Infernus Marines slightly to their left so they can see everything, and also getting a bit closer to the captain for mutual support. Then we move on to the shooting phase, because I've made all my moves. The Infernus Marines can shoot at the Termagants because they're all in range. So 5d6 automatic hits, 21. So I'll do a batch of 11 and a batch of 10, needing 3s to wound against toughness 3 Termagants. Getting 8 from the first, and 6 from the second batch, so 14 wounds in total.
We've got 14 5+ saves for Termagants, which I only made 3 of, so they are all gone.
They have 1 wound each, so that will be 11 wounds. But I can't do anything further in my turn because the captain fell back, so he's not eligible to shoot, and I'm obviously far too far away to declare any charges. So we'll be on to the Tyranid turn.
So my movement, the Von Ryan's Leap is just going to move forward 10 inches, gets them about 6 or 7 inches away, which is a easy enough charge, I think, whereas the Barb Gaunts moved out just to get them all in range with their Barb launchers.
Yeah, they have a 24-inch range, which we don't think we've needed that information before, but it is relevant here.
Yeah, and they're going to shoot at the Infernus Marines. So 5d6 shots. So 16 shots from the Barb Gaunts on 4s, 10 hits, wounding on 3s. 4 fails, that'll be 6 wounds.
So 6 3+ saves, failed 1, so a Marine takes a wound. So a wound on a Marine, and then we're on to the charge phase.
Yeah, the Von Ryan's Leapers are going to try and charge the Infernus Marines. And their charges are 7, that is enough to get them in. So they're going to make their charge like that, staying away from the captain, because I don't want to fight him as well. And then when they can pile in, we can get this one to go around.
Yeah.
And then we can fill the gap.
So the unit that charged gets to go first, in this case the Leapers obviously. They do have the fights first rule on their data sheet in general, but like in the previous issue we're going to ignore that for now, and it's not relevant here anyway.
Yeah, it just wasn't mentioned in the tutorial, so 18 attacks from the Von Ryan's Leapers on 3s. Only 9 hits, looking for 3s to wound, getting 6 wounds.
Those 6 4+ saves to make with that AP. Oh, failed 4, so 4 wounds in total will kill off the wounded one, and another Space Marine will be this one, and someone else will take a wound as well. So the Von Ryan's Leapers have consolidated, and then the Space Marines can be picked to fight, and this one can pile in to make sure it's within range to strike. Then we'll have 9 attacks hitting on 3s, getting 6, and wounding on 5s, getting 2 with no AP.
4+ saves, made 1. Take a wound on a Leaper.
That will be the end of the Tyranid turn, with all the fighting concluded, so we'll be on to the Space Marine turn again. So in the Space Marine movement phase, the captain has moved forward slightly from where he was to make room for the Infernus Marines so they can fall back away from the Von Ryan's Leapers, because they're obviously not going to win that fight. So the Infernus Marines are not eligible to shoot because they fell back, but the captain now is. He's going to shoot at the Von Ryan's Leapers. So we'll get to see his Storm Bolter. It has the rapid fire rule, but we haven't been introduced to what that is yet, so we're going to ignore that for now. So checking his datasheet, you'll see it has 2 shots that hit on 2s, because he's quite good at shooting. But he still managed to miss with one of those. And then it's only strength 4, so it'll be wounding on a 5 against the Leapers. Oh, it did, but it doesn't have any AP, and it will do 1 damage.
I made the 4+ save.
But now we'll be on to the charge phase, where the captain can declare a charge, because he has not fallen back or advanced this turn. So he will do so into the Leapers. So any roll will do, but we'll show it, so he gets to move up to 5. So the captain will finish his charge there, and then he charged, so he gets to fight first. Once again, although it says the Leapers have the fights first rule on their datasheet, we haven't strictly been told what that does yet, so although you can probably guess, the captain will get to go first. So the captain's relic weapon has 6 attacks that hit on 2s. 4 hits, and they'll be winning on 4s because it's strength 4, 5 versus toughness 5, getting 2 with an AP of -2.
Needing 6s to save. Fail both.
And it does 2 damage a swing.
So Wounded Leaper is killed, and another one is down to 1 wound remaining.
But then the Leapers get to fight back.
12 attacks from the remaining Leapers of the 3s. 9 hits. And wounding on 4s, because it's strength 5 versus toughness 5, so that's 6 wounds at an AP -1.
So the captain has to make 6 saves, and he'll be saving on 3s, because he has a 2+ normally. Ooh, he failed 3 and takes 3 wounds, so he's down to 3 remaining. But that's the end of the Space Marines' turn. Back to the Tyranids.
So my movement, the Barb Gaunts are going to move away from the Marines, still within their 20-point range though. And I'm going to keep the Von Ryan's Leapers in melee. I could fall them back, but the captain's just going to keep chasing them around, and he'll get to shoot at them and then charge. So even though he'll get to fight first in the fight phase, he'll get to fight first if he charges in the Space Marine turn. And if I do fall them back, then the Infernus Marines might be able to roast them as well. So the Barb Gaunts just shooting at the Infernus squad, because they're the only eligible target. 5d6 shots. 19 shots hitting on 4s. 10 hits, wounding on 3s. 6 again.
6 saves, failed 2, so just the 2 Marines left. But then we'll be on to the fight phase, because there won't be any charges, where the captain does get to go first, because it's not his turn. So once again he gets to make 6 attacks that hit on 2s, or they all hit this time, and wound on 4s. 4.
Looking for 6s. Don't make any, it's going to wipe out the Leapers.
So with that, the Leapers are destroyed, and it's also the end of the Tyranids' turn. So we'll be back to the Space Marines. So in the movement phase, the Infernus Marines are going to move up normally because that will get them in range to shoot. And while the captain does have a gun, as you've seen, he's much better in melee. So we're going to advance with him, so we'll get to see how that works, to see if we can get a bit closer. So I roll a dice and add this to his movement characteristic for this phase. A 1, so that will take his move from 5 to a mighty 6 inches. So only just really keeping pace with the Infernus Marines with that. And he will not get to shoot, he won't get to charge either, though he's still kind of too far away to do that anyway. But if he'd rolled higher, then he would at least have been close enough to attempt it if he hadn't advanced. So in the shooting phase, we just have the Infernus Marines, and they are both in range. 2d6 automatic hits, 6. Wounding on 3s, because they're toughness 4. Only 3.
4 plus saves. Made 2, so one of them will take a wound.
So once again, the captain can't shoot because he advanced, but the Infernus Marines are actually going to declare a charge on the Barbed Gaunts. They're allowed to do so because they're within 12 inches. It does mean I'm going to need to roll a big number, but if I can get in, the Barbed Gaunts aren't very good in melee, and it will tie them up, so they won't be able to shoot again. So probably going to need to see an 11 or a 12 on these 2 dice. No, a 6 is definitely not enough. So that means that the Marines stay where they are, they don't move at all. But that'll be the end of my turn. Back to the Tyranids.
Well, the Barbed Gaunts are going to continue retreating into the corner, but staying so they can all see an Infernus Marine. D6 shots. And that was a 6. That's 23 shots. 23 shots looking for 4s. 10 hits, wounding on 3s. I'm getting 8 wounds though.
8 3 plus saves. Only failed 1, so the injured man will go down, but the sergeant is still alive. Only 2 Space Marines left, but they're going to move up in their movement phase. The captain has moved normally this time, he didn't advance, because he will be able to declare a charge, even if it'll be quite a long one. But we'll do some shooting first. We will start with the Infernus Sergeant. So he gets 4 automatic hits, which wound on 3s, that will be 3.
4s to save. I made 1, so I lose the Barbed Gaunt that's wounded, and another one is wounded.
Then the captain will shoot as well, he's got his 2 shots that hit on 2s, they both hit. And they'll be wounding on 4s, strength 4 versus toughness 4. 2 wounds, but no AP.
4s to save again, made 1, failed 1. So I'm taking away the Barbed Gaunt at the front, just so that the Marines have a harder time charging them.
So yeah, we will declare some charges. The captain will need a very big number if he's even within 12 inches.
He is within. He's going to need a 12, basically, or an 11.
So we'll do the Infernus Marine Sergeant first. He will still need a good number as well, 7. And the Sergeant was just about within 8 inches, so by moving 7 he will therefore get within an inch, and therefore it will be a legal charge. And the Captain is going to need an 11, because he's just about 12 inches away. No. The Infernus Marine Sergeant is the only one in melee, so he'll have 3 attacks, which hit twice, and will need 4s to wound, because they are strength 4, but he failed to wound.
Well, you're going to pile in. So I have to pile in the Barbed Gaunts if I want to get them all to fight. So we have 3 attacks, because they got 1 each on 4s. 1, and 4 to wound, no. So I'm just going to fall back on my turn, just so the Captain has a harder time charging.
So then the Marine Sergeant just moved to the side, so that the Captain has a slightly easier charge. But we do get to do some shooting with both units. The Captain didn't advance again. D6 hits from the Pyreblaster, 3 this time. Wounding only once though.
Saved.
And the Captain's Stormbolter hits twice, and we'll be winning on 4s once.
Saved again.
Then some charge rolls. We'll do the Captain first. He will still need a large number. An 8. Yeah, he was just under 9 inches away, so an 8 will get him in. And then the Infernus Sergeant, even the minimum of 2 will be enough, so I'm just going to push him in like that. I'm not going to bother rolling. Sometimes you don't really need to. But then we will get to fight with both of my units, and we'll do the Captain first. So he'll have 6 attacks on 2s. On top was a hit, so they all do. And he'll be winning on 3s because his sword is strength 5. The Barbed Gaunt's a toughness 4. That'll be 5.
6s to save. Didn't make any.
No.
2 damage each.
Yeah, so each one will kill a Barbed Gaunt, and that will kill the remaining ones. So with that, the board is cleared of Tyranids and the Marines will be victorious, although a little bit wounded on the Captain, and obviously we lost quite a few Marines. But playing that again probably won't come up with a different outcome. We could let the Tyranids go first, but it's probably still not going to go in their favour, because they're just going to struggle to damage the Captain, really.
Yeah, if the Tyranids go first and I manage to get a really good roll and really poor rolls so the Captain saves and kill him, it'll probably go well. The Termagants aren't going to do that much damage against the Infernus Marines, who can probably just roast them anyway if the Captain doesn't fall back. So yeah, I think we'll just leave it at 1 game and it's a Space Marine victory.
So we'll recap all of that for you now. So that was the game for issue 9 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol magazine. How did you think that went?
Yeah, not terribly well, although even if I go first, I think it's still an uphill struggle for the Tyranids because the Termagants aren't really going to achieve very much and the Barb Gaunts are a bit swingy. We have seen that it takes them a few turns to kill a unit of 5 Infernus Marines and they're not really going to do much to the Captain with his 2+ save. It's going to come down to whether if the Von Rhein's Leapers killing the Captain. The Von Rhein's Leapers and the Captain are really the two key units here.
Yeah, the Barb Gaunts did about average, I think, about as well as you'd expect. The Leapers didn't roll quite so many hits, but then the Captain also had a bad roll of saves, so the damage he took was not reflective of the average anyway, really. And as we can see, against weaker things like Barb Gaunts, he can just cut straight through them. His only real weakness is he's very slow. And actually, if he'd rolled a decent advance roll, then he would have been closer when he did attempt to charge. So
yeah, on a board this size, being a little bit slower doesn't make too much difference.
Yeah, the scenario did make some claims that the tactical positioning would be very important and that you can use the various movement options to your advantage, but actually the Von Rhein's Leapers are so fast that they can get pretty much anywhere anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I could have hid them behind the terrain, but the Captain could probably charge them fairly easily at that point.
And then obviously advancing and falling back, yeah, these are major important rules. As we saw as an example, the Infernus Marines definitely did not want to be in melee with the Leapers, so they were able to retreat. But we also saw the other main use, which is getting out of melee so you can shoot something, which was a better idea, because the Captain physically can't kill all the Termagants in one round of melee, so shooting them with the Infernus Marines is a much better option. And then advancing, it didn't actually do me all that much good, but the Captain was able to run a bit faster when he needed to.
Well, it does depend, because normally units can't advance or shoot or charge, but there are some exceptions to that. So it can actually make some units much more mobile than they appear at first glance.
And we will see examples of those as the collection goes on and we get introduced to more rules, no doubt.
And I think we've learned most of the basic rules at this point, so you can actually see that we can kind of start having bigger games once you've got the basics out of the way, start putting everything together.
Yeah, there's no reason now why you can't just play your own games with the units we've got so far, because you've got all the data sheets for them and all the rules you need, really. There's rules and keywords on the data sheets that we haven't learnt about yet, which is why we weren't using them, but you now know what enough of the numbers do to make a good game out of things, so there's no reason why you couldn't just make up your own scenarios now.
Yeah, and it is interesting, I think, that they have designed it so you can play it solo. If you were playing it solo and using the rules as written for the Tyranids, it would probably be even easier, because the Barb Gaunts would probably waste time shooting at the Captain.
No, and if I hadn't wiped out all the Termagants, then they would have, by the solo rules, ended up charging into the Captain, most likely, or something similar. But yeah, it is good that they have designed them, at least with that in mind, so that if you are new to this game and you don't have anyone to play with, or certainly anyone to play with regularly anyway, then yeah, you can just play these as many times as you like, just to get the hang of things.
Yeah, and we've got a few more paints as well, so it's starting to cover most of especially the Marines will probably actually start to look reasonably complete, because they are mostly blue, black and gold. That's sort of 90% of the colour scheme.
But anyway, I think that'll do it for this video, so if you enjoyed the episode, then feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Let us know how you've been getting on. If you've been playing along, particularly if you've been learning for the first time, then let us know how you're getting on with the pace of the introduction of the rules, and now that we're getting enough rules to be able to play bigger games like this, how you've been finding it all. We've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.